This is the Fun Belt Podcast, part of the Believe Network.
Hosts the Dusty Thibodeau of Warhawk Report, Jeremy Harper of Howl Razor, and Shane Metlin of the Daily News Record.
I think it's potentially a very good week for the Sun Belt.
But I'm just kind of going off on a random rant. It's just frustrating. It's the gang's all here.
We're here
for Fun Belt Podcast. First time in a while that we've all been together. Shane's back to being well. Jeremy is no longer hungover from Arkansas State becoming bowl eligible.
No, I'm still hungover.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, guys, how are we feeling, though, as we want to recap week number 12? Warhawks still looking for win number 6. Southern Miss still floundering in the wind as they look for a new head coach. The Cajuns unable to clinch the West and hosting the Sun Belt Conference Championship, falling to South Alabama. Shane, we'll kick it off with you because Jeremy needs a minute probably to eat some more crackers.
Oh, you're just how am I feeling?
You kicked it off to Shane.
We're off to a good start.
Shane was all prepared and ready, like he had his notes and
Yeah.
he knew what he's going to say. And
Mistakes
Shane,
w're made.
Yeah, Shane just dropped the ball.
I don't know. I mean, I think overall, pretty good week. I mean,
Okay.
Tibbs, are your Warhawks going to get back on track? I mean, we talked about it. We said they were going to be competitive against Auburn. We went from saying, "Oh, that's an upset," to like they're going to do okay, to like watching them get blown out. So I think that's the big question right now: is are the Warhawks going to get bowl eligible? We need it after that start. They need it.
It's got to happen. It's got to happen.
What do you mean they weren't competitive? I mean, our backup quarterback connected on to a true freshman receiver for like a 65-yard touchdown. If you're not competitive with that, what are you talking about, Shane?
Is that how you measure victories now, Tibbs? Is whether or not you score one touchdown? Hey, that you know what? That is the FCS mentality that has infected you, Tibbs.
No, that is
had
the
another rushing touchdown.
Look at these young guys that are making plays. That is the bright spot for the last few weeks.
Yeah. I tell you what, I thought the story of the week was it looked like the Cajuns were going to completely nail down the West, right?
Yeah.
They fall to South Alabama, and now suddenly there's all sorts of guys in the West going, hey, maybe, you got Ben Wooldridge out for the season, guys. That's big. That's huge. Having that fantastic season for the Cajuns, just leading them with his 1,000-year-old wisdom. Now it's up to Chandler Fields, which is pretty good backup to have, but still, I mean, is the West open again? Is it open for business, Tibbs?
Door's cracked. That's for sure.
Yes.
And I think the Cajuns, they got to take care of Troy, and Troy is showing signs of life.
Hottest team in the Sun Belt.
Crazy as it sounds, but I'll tell you, I think the Cajuns, they still almost pulled it off late with Chandler Fields.
Yeah.
Able to come from behind and make it a 2-point game, missing the 2-point conversion. But even a wounded Cajuns team is still pretty damn good football. And so I'm anxious to kind of watch that game and see what happens with Troy and their newfound swagger, that really they seem to have just been kind of, screw it, we have nothing to play for, let's go out there and just ruin everyone's Christmas. So that's what they're doing. And I think when they go into Lafayette this week, they're going to try to ruin Christmas for the Cajuns.
Ever since Troy came out of the tunnel for the second half against Arkansas State, Troy has been playing lights out football. 2.5 victories. Let's call it that, because they won the second half against Arkansas State. 2.5 victories after having one victory all year. If you're a Troy fan, you gotta be looking at this moment like, where was this earlier in the year? They got the new quarterback out there. He's got like 7 touchdowns in the last 2 wins. His name suddenly escapes me. Tibbs, I know you know the name.
I don't remember it either, but he was Sunbelt Offensive Player of the Week.
Yeah. Where was this guy? You know, they're messing around with Goose Crowder. They had this guy on the bench, Matthew something. You're looking it up, aren't you, Tibbs?
I'm looking it up because we can't count on Shane to do anything.
Shane should be the records man. He's the real journalist here. He should have those facts and figures at his fingertips.
Matthew Caldwell. Jr.
Yes. Thank you. Matthew Caldwell Jr., quarterback out of Troy, getting it done. And, you know, you got to be, if you're Troy, and Gerard Parker must be breathing the sigh of relief, going, God, I guess I don't suck. I guess I have a team here, but a little bit too late, right? But not too late to screw over the Cajuns, right?
I don't know. I'll go back to what you said, Jeremy, about like Troy fans being like, where was this early in the season?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do they feel that way, or do they feel like, hey, we're improving and maybe we weren't expecting this, and this is a good sign going forward?
I'm telling you this, if this was Arkansas State, we would be pissed off. It'd be like, where was this earlier on? Why didn't we have the quarterback in place? Why didn't we have the offensive line humming the way it is? Why wasn't the defense playing the way it is now? That's how we are. Now, maybe at Troy, maybe they're just more happy-go-lucky fans. I don't know. Shane, how would the fan base at, I don't know, say JMU handle this situation?
Not that great. I mean, there'd be some consternation and yeah, I think you've probably seen that before, not necessarily in football recently, but even sports like basketball, sometimes there's like, well, where was this earlier, instead of just appreciating like, hey, we're making a run late, you know?
We can't appreciate the moment, which is too bad. I feel like Warhawks fans, I feel like at least they can appreciate the moment, right? They got their 5 wins early in the season. They're like, man, this is way better than we thought. Got a great future ahead of us. Got these freshman kids. Hopefully we can hang on to them. Here's the future. They're probably in good spirits, right, Tibbs?
They were. But I'm telling you, this team is so beat up right now and so thin. Going to Jonesboro, there's we'll talk about it in our next episode when we do that preview. But they're beat up, especially on the offensive line, and it's hanging in there by a thread. So we got to hope, pray, and maybe give Jalen Rayner some of that yellow chicken there to try to take advantage of the Red Wolves.
So speaking of finicky fans, Shane.
Okay.
Only if you've heard this. You're a
How
little
does yellow chicken equal finicky fans?
Well, we were talking about finicky fans, and then you went off on a tangent. I'm bringing us back in.
Oh, okay.
Shane, I don't know if you've heard this. I heard a little bit of rumbling, and it surprised me. And maybe I'm reading too much in it. But I heard some rumbling out of Georgia Southern after the loss to Troy about maybe Clay Helton's in trouble, which I think is a little ridiculous. Have you heard this? Have you heard this sort of gastrointestinal unease?
I hadn't heard that. Like,
maybe it's just me.
On some level, I get it, because it does kind of look again like, oh yeah, if you're Georgia Southern, it's always just kind of like in the middle, like, right? Like you never, like under Helton anyway, you haven't had that like 9 or 10 win season where it's just fairly consistent. On the other hand, they were in the driver's seat a week ago, and like you lose to a Troy team you probably shouldn't lose to, but like the whole trajectory of the program doesn't change in 1 week. Like, you know, you may go back and pinpoint that moment later on if things don't get better, but like, you know, he was, you know, maybe if we're not talking Bryant Vincent and Louisiana loses and everything, you know, he's maybe in the coach of the year conversation, or at least going to get some votes possibly if Georgia Southern wins the East. Like, so yeah, I get it on one level, but it's also not very rational.
Speaking of the East, guys, did you know that the Herd has won 4 straight and has won 6 of their last 7? Hey, did you guys are we even aware of this? Tibbs, were you aware of this fact?
I was doing the huff shuffle earlier.
I feel like the herd, the thundering herd, is somehow squeaking under the radar somehow. Like they're having this tremendous season. And is anybody really talking about the herd? Maybe it's because of my proximity in the middle America that I'm not getting the sort of East Coast vibe from it. But I'm a little surprised I'm not hearing people going, yeah, this herd team is for real.
I like to take credit for it, honestly, Jeremy. Ever since I was tutored,
Yeah, that's right.
they've been undefeated. It's the power of the tutor's biscuit.
Okay, so by feeding you the tutor's biscuit, it has somehow fed the herd just W after W.
I mean, Huff won me over with the NIL deal. They're now shipping me tutor's biscuits on a daily basis. It's
Shane-
weird because they come in a Ziploc bag, but that's a whole nother story.
Oh God. Okay. All right. That must be some sort of herd thing. I don't know. Shane, are these guys for real?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And I think you're right that they're not maybe getting as much love as they should. I mean, at 7-3 at this point, I mean, I think some of their quote unquote failures maybe stick out more than the wins for whatever reason. I mean, we all are going to remember kind of like that collapse at Georgia Southern and what it meant at the time. But I mean, if they went out, it doesn't matter, and I think they've really gotten on track. They seem to have settled on the quarterback. And yeah, I just think like for some reason the losses stick out more than the wins with this team. And I don't know exactly why.
Yeah, Stone Early only got a couple snaps last game. So it seems like they're finally sort of weaning off of Stone and going with Braxton. And it seems like they have more than one running back, too. A.J. Turner not really doing as much anymore. Now it's some of the other guys.
AJ Turner got hurt in the ULM game, so they've had other guys that have had to step up.
That must be why he hasn't been hitting. Okay. Because I was like, what happened to him? Did he get hurt? What's the deal? Speaking of which, was it as weird a game, JMU versus ODU, as it looked in the box score?
I think to some degree there was some strange things that happened. I mean, early on, it looked like JMU was on the cusp of blowing them out. They hadn't been stopped on the first few drives. They get the ball back with an opportunity to go up by like 18 points, I think, early in the game. And they have their first 3 and out, get a punt blocked. ODU scores, and all of a sudden it's a completely different game. ODU ends up taking the lead for a while, but then JMU's defense dominates in the second half. And so there were some strange things that happened. There was, 2-point conversions early, onside kicks in the middle of the game. There was lots of things that made it kind of feel strange.
Is it Ricky Ronnie that makes it strange, Tibbs, or is it just somehow the nature of the Monarchs?
I think it's the nature of the Monarchs and the weirdness of ODU. But Shane, I saw the video with no real context around it. Why was Ricky Ronnie telling Chesney how much he loved him from across the field?
So I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, okay.
He said, "You or yeah," to end that thing. Which a completely different context. If he was like, I think after hearing from some people who were there that it may have been more F yeah, we recovered it. Why'd you try it? Not anything directed at, I mean, let's just be honest. Kurt Signetti and Jamie Chadwell are gone. Most of the coaches in the league get along at this point. So I don't think there was really a ton of animosity there. It looked early on, like seeing the video and stuff, I think most people thought he said you, but I'm starting to think maybe it was no, F yeah, we got the ball.
So you got to see this Colton Joseph, right? 3 rushing touchdowns. Is this guy the real deal? Is he the freshman of the year?
I don't know. Or is it the at ULM? That's a tough one. That's a really tough choice right now.
Yeah, Hardy or Colton Joseph. Those are 2 really tough guys to look at. But man, 3 rushing touchdowns from the quarterback. I think he only threw like for 100 yards passing, but still, that's pretty good. By the way, I don't. Do you guys sit on the entire Sunbelt Media Day, like on Monday, or do you only kind of wait for your certain coaches and then kind of bail, kind of peace out?
I used to do it the whole thing on Monday.
Well, you're
JMU changed their media schedule up so that like now Chesney goes on there and then immediately turns around and does his press conference in person for the locals. So I end up either being in the car or listening to Bob for a good chunk of it.
Tibbs, do you weigh in on these? I've seen you there a couple times.
Yeah, I really haven't had time from the real job there, Jeremy. So I usually listen to it on Monday nights and kind of get the highlights. But yeah, I listen to all 2.5 hours of questions. Yes.
Did you catch Ricky Ronnie and oh god, the guy for the Herd, Huff, Coach Huff, Charlie Huff, kind of beefing a little bit? I think it was playful beefing, but they were beefing about being on time for their interviews or for their press conference.
I think it was cut.
They were sitting there beefing for like 5 minutes. Like, Ronnie goes something to the effect of, "Oh, Coach Huff isn't here? Well, he kind of busted my chops for being a little late a couple weeks ago. I don't know why he wouldn't be here now." And then Huff appears out of nowhere like El Smoke and says, "I've been here the whole time. I'm like on the board or something." They start going at each other, and they both have kind of grins on their faces. But I wonder if there was a little bit of heat with them too. I don't know. There might be some spark. Yeah, the Sun Belt. You're right, Shane. There's some of these rivalries are gone. We kind of need some button heads, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not aware of anybody who just doesn't really like anybody else. I mean, obviously competitive nature gets to people sometimes, but I don't think there's a ton of tension at the league meetings or anything at this point.
Nah, it seems like the society of mutual respect. Everybody seems to like everybody, maybe because there's a lot of new guys, and there's not enough time to really hate each other. Yeah. But so JMU, are they still in the thick? Who's in the thick in the East? I mean, who's going to catch up to the Herd?
Well, JMU and the Herd still have to play each other.
So, closing out the season.
Yeah, close out the regular season. Could be huge.
Yeah.
I don't know. I absolutely love this. I think everybody, unless you're one of those teams, one of the rare teams that is actually sitting in first place right now with 1 loss. So if you're a Marshall fan or if you're a Louisiana fan, you're not going to agree with what I'm about to say. But there's a very real possibility we're looking at 3-way ties atop both the East and the West to end this regular season, which I think is a ton of fun.
Yes, I would love that. That would be the kind of entropy that I would pay good money for. That's just good stuff right there.
It's a real possibility right now when you look at the schedules.
And that means ULM beats Arkansas State this weekend, Jeremy.
That would be some entropy that I wouldn't necessarily care for, because that would mean that the 14-year streak has ended for the Warhawks. And I just want to see that keep going. I mean, 15 years has a nice ring to it. But I will say Arkansas State did play Georgia State, and I saw absolutely zero of this game, guys. I got committed to some family things. It's like one of those things where, like, you're supposed to be paying attention, but I'm like constantly on the cell phone, checking the Twitter, seeing what's going on, kind of, like getting angry at times. Like Megan's like, what's going on with you? You're red in the face. And then, later on, I'm kind of relieved. Oh, thank God. That's kind of how the game went against Georgia State. Georgia State, maybe the toughest 2-win team in all of college football right now. We
said that going into it.
Yeah.
Dale McGee has the boys playing. It's just too little too late and not fully his guys with his system.
I'm allergic to great analysis, so I apologize for that. But yeah, they just don't quite have the tools to close out games. I can't put my finger on it, and maybe if I had watched the game, I'd been able to put a finger on it. But at the same time, guys, it is very frustrating as a Red Wolves fan to have had 4 years under one head coach. and then to barely come away with a win against a kind of decimated Georgia State team that had to start from scratch. And just, I don't know why Arkansas State can't put away teams like that easily. That's a argument for some other time. Maybe a written story by me. I don't know. I probably shouldn't be on this blog, but that was very frustrating. Tibbs, did you catch the Warhawks at Auburn? The Warhawks versus the War Eagles. Double war.
I did, and honestly, went about as expected.
Yeah.
I know that we thought that it was a potential for an upset. It didn't happen, though. Peyton Thorne really had the Tigers up and going because they're playing for bowl eligibility also. How crazy is it that Auburn has to win out in order to be 6-6 and squeak into a bowl game? So there was a lot riding on this game for them as well.
Yeah.
But I still thought that ULM put up some good fights. I thought that obviously there's a huge talent difference. Auburn with a top 25 defense, ULM with probably a bottom 25 offense. It was not a good matchup there. We did get to see a little bit of Rashad Hardy get a touchdown. And as I said earlier, the general getting a 65-yard bomb to Bibb for the touchdown late. The defensive back did fall down, but Bibb still had to haul it in, still had to finish
You got to
the
complete
catch
Yeah.
and cross the goal line. So it still counts for 6 in my book. And, you know, it is what it is, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I know that you're going to say FCS mentality, Will Halls back in the chat here. But at the end of the day, I mean, as long as the check clears, on to the games that really count, and that's the Sun Belt Conference games.
Speaking of checks that cleared, there were no checks involved, but it sort of felt that way. The thumping Texas State put on Southern Miss. You know, I do a preview of games for Hellraiser every week, and I honestly, I don't have anything good to say about Southern Miss. Do us collective, the three of us, the three nicest guys in the world, do we have anything nice to say about Southern Miss?
It sounds like they're getting further into the process of finding a coach.
I have heard some rumors. Buster Faulkner is in the mix. Wow.
Does that count as something nice? They're making progress there.
Yeah, I think that's some reason for hope there in Hadesburg. Tibbs?
I thought it was nice that they invited the Bobcats over for a swim party.
Was it a little wet in Hattiesburg?
Well, it was actually in San Marcos, but yeah, it was definitely a very wet post-game celebration, including President Dampus jumping in full suit, tie, cowboy hat, and all.
That's right, because they got bowl eligible that game.
I did.
Yeah, a lot of bowl eligibility. But if you're Texas State, you that's a little bittersweet too, right? Because you entered the season with these expectations, national pundits saying, "Hey, these are kind of a sleeper candidate to get into the college football playoffs." Texas State, man, they could go, 12-0, and now here they are. It's this late in the season. They're looking for some sort of regional bowl game to go to. Obviously, not the ideal season, not ideal ending for GJ Kenny and his team, right?
Can I take us off topic for a second?
Yes,
Always.
So Jeremy had it wrong because it's Texas State that has the river that runs through campus. I don't think there's a river or anything in Hattiesburg and the Southern Miss campus, right?
No, there's no river.
But I am curious, who has the best nautical features on campus? Because we've got the
Georgia
river
Southern.
going through there. There's a man-made lake right next to JMU Stadium.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously got the waterfalls in Jonesboro.
That's right.
Who else has a place to take a swim and celebrate that way on campus?
I mean, you could at ULM. I don't know if I'd go in that bayou, but yeah, you could.
Well, there's beautiful Eagle Creek too.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got that. Nobody's within ocean distance, right? No, Conway, Coastal Carolina.
They're not that close to the beach.
Okay.
There was a ditch by the railroad tracks at Marshall. Does that count?
Yeah, why not?
ODU's got water nearby,
Yeah, like a river?
like a bay.
Oh, a bay. Okay. Can you see it from like the upper deck?
Not from the stadium, but I think there's places on campus that are pretty much right on the water.
Oh, okay. All right. It's not like Northwestern that's like right there on a Great Lake.
That's just their temporary stadium.
I thought there was parts of the campus.
Campus is like there on the lake.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, anyway. But no, Shane, why? Why did you pull us in this direction?
I'm curious. All I was thinking as we were talking about Texas State was, where else could you just jump in the water to celebrate a big win?
Nothing beats Texas State in the Hill, though.
You mean in terms of water activity or
Yes, exactly.
you know what? I think people in Statesboro would take umbrage with that, Tibbs. And in fact, I feel like you're drifting into Shane territory here by creating enemies. I feel like you're getting really close to getting a lot of angry X's.
I think Eagle Creek serves its purpose, but I'm not sure you're going to get a whole lot of people like diving in.
You know what? There's nothing fun about Eagle Creek. It's like that's where guys get baptized.
Yeah.
You know, that's serious business.
I don't think you can cannonball into Eagle Creek.
No.
Well,
Nobody's
you could,
putting an
but it
inflatable-
would be a career-limiting move.
That's right. Nobody's putting in an inflatable in Eagle Creek and floating its length. It's it's you're doing it in San Marcos, though. I think you're right. I think that's right. I think that's what done recapping the football, though, right, guys? I mean, now we get to talk a little bit. Tibbs, tell me, do we get to talk a little bit about basketball at last?
We do.
Okay.
For what it's worth. I mean, it's been a pretty bad beginning to basketball season. We have the likes of William and Mary beating Georgia Southern, Jackson State beating Coastal Carolina,
Yeah.
Oregon beating Troy out on the West Coast.
Yeah, I didn't get the final score on that. Was it a blowout?
82-61. So not really a bad showing.
Okay, could have been better though. Okay.
A couple of the highlights, if you're ready for that there, Jeremy.
Yeah, I am. Can you quit being a Debbie Downer and give me some highlights?
Georgia State had a 40-point win over Taka Falls.
Yeah.
South Alabama over neighboring Spring Hill.
Yeah, I saw that.
And the most interesting stat to really kind of come out of these first few weeks of the season,
All right.
who do you think is the worst field goal percentage shooting team in the Sun Belt?
Huh. Well, I only know this because we discussed it off camera. Should I pretend I don't know?
I'm pretty sure that you probably already forgot that conversation.
You know what? I have seen plenty of their games this year, so I would say it must be Arkansas State.
You are correct. Arkansas State shooting a league worst 39% from the floor.
That's not good.
However,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, we were talking kind of pre-show.
Yeah.
Arkansas State defense
Yes.
is holding opponents to 38%.
Absolutely. Just
Thus,
defense.
you can score that 1% more, you're going to win by that handful of points.
Yeah, I will tell you, this team is capable of scoring points, and you will eventually see that the buckets come. In the meantime, if you're not scoring points, the one thing you can do is get aggressive on defense, and that's exactly what this team has done. They're just smothering. They're great in the paint. They're great on the perimeter. They weren't so much last year. That was probably their biggest weakness was defense. Now they seem to have gotten it together. This team is going to be a very interesting team. I think everybody's really looking forward to the big Memphis game that I believe is December 6th this year. We're very excited about that. That could be that signature win, Shane Metlin, that you were kind of looking for from Arkansas State. That would be a nice win to have. So
It would be.
yeah.
We weren't recording when I mentioned the signature win. You act like that's part of the conversation here, but
Oh, that's true. Yeah. It all melts together.
yeah.
We're-
I'm gonna suck up to a fan base and get
Yeah,
somebody on
there's
my
a
side.
first.
Yeah, get somebody on my side.
we're-
Tibbs calls out Georgia Southern for losing to William and Mary, which is it's not a great result, obviously.
Correct.
But let's not act like this is the Georgia Southern team that didn't win a non-conference game last year, because they played in that tournament. They lost the third day of the tournament. They got some solid wins non-conference last week. They beat NC Central, which is usually a pretty decent MEAC team. They beat Winthrop. Is always like a pretty tough mid-major.
Yeah.
Those are not games that Georgia Southern was winning last year. So I think let's give them a little bit of credit for continuing to improve. And we don't have any signature wins in the Sun Belt this year. Like last year, JMU beat Michigan State, App State beat Auburn. We got those early in the year, got people kind of like noticing the Sun Belt. We haven't had that at all first couple weeks of the season, but I do think the bottom is getting a little bit better. And Georgia Southern's prime example there. They had a good week.
But and then who else is having a good week though? We know who's having kind of a bad week. I mean, I kind of expected a little bit more from the Trojans, for instance. And I don't know if they're just playing really tough teams or not, but they all seem to be there. Is there anybody that go on?
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, the Trojans are definitely playing some tough competition. They're games that they might not necessarily be the favorite in. They might not necessarily win, but I feel like kind of early on and how we've seen Chandler Rigby in the past, and we'll actually get to women's basketball and their 1-4 start. But I feel like Scott Cross is really taking that team, taking his lumps now to improve his team and get them better so that when March rolls around, they're in a lot better position to really contend for not only the Sun Belt, but maybe even in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you guys did mention earlier too that the Sun Belt seems to be floundering a little bit. We did pretty good in the MAC versus Sun Belt Challenge. We won the majority of those games. So there's some. I think there's still some. There's a little bit to build on for the Sun Belt. But we were talking off camera, Shane. Thanks for reminding me that most of this happened off camera. We were talking about, or at least I was talking about, there doesn't seem to be a depth of stars in the Sun Belt right now, like big names that seep to the surface. I mean, even like Southern Miss last year seemed to have 2 or 3 guys I remember going, oh yeah, those guys are really good. I don't really have that. Do you guys have that sense yet that there's some guys that kind of bubble to the top and go, God, I don't want to play him, or do you feel that yet? I don't know if I feel that yet.
Not yet. I mean, there's definitely guys on the ULM team, kind of being my team, that I'm going to look at and because I know the roster a little bit better. But yeah, there's nobody when I look around the league, maybe other than Kobe, that's now at Arkansas State, and that's even kind of weird to me that he transferred up there.
Yeah. Playing Dynamite, by the way.
Yeah, but there's no one that really just jumps out of, golly, I can't wait to go see this guy, or golly, we have to play that guy.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we just need a few more games for that to stand out. But for now, men's basketball just sort of treading water a little bit, maybe like a shark waiting for its prey. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
On the women's side, rough outings as well. Southern Miss falls to NAIA Southeastern University out of Lakeland, Florida.
Oh, God.
South Alabama falls to North Alabama.
Oh, man.
UNC Greensboro over App State. And why that's actually not as bad of a loss as it looks like from the outside looking in. UNC Greensboro, 21 wins last season.
Okay.
And they were in the WNIT in the postseason. They also beat Coastal Carolina last year, so they're kind of the trendsetters or continuing that hot streak of beating Sun Belt Conference teams. One that stings a little bit more, though, George Mason over Marshall in the women's action.
I
think George Mason's pretty decent.
The good news, though, for you, Jeremy, Arkansas State shooting and blistering 88% from the floor, including leading scorer, Chrislyn Rose, averaging 19 points a game.
She came out of nowhere.
The Cajuns surrendering 53% from the floor to opponents. Troy surrendering 82%. Thus, they're 1-4. Here's a huge asterisk to that, though.
Okay.
As I mentioned, Chandler Rigby taking her team really through the ringer.
Yeah.
Lost their MAC challenge to Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Lost at Montana State. Still don't know why they played a random game in random Montana.
We're just gonna go to Montana, girls.
Pack it up. Let's go, kids. Lost at number 24 Alabama. Lost at number 7 LSU. Picked up their sole win against UT's Chattanooga.
Okay. That's a tough slate. Yeah, Arkansas State, they scored 100 points on Arizona State, which was kind of cool. And then scored like 100 points on Mississippi Valley State University, which was cool again. And then they've lost tonight to Xavier by a couple points. But yeah, you know what's weird about Arkansas State is they had two of the best players they've had in a long time on that team last year. Both of them transferred out, and now they're suddenly able to score points. So I don't know. I don't know how things work. You know, plus is minus and plus. I don't get it. And didn't the Sunbelt women come up with another sort of high profile win the other day? Like somebody like Ole Miss or something. Didn't I see that? Come on, guys, help me out.
I remember.
I don't remember hearing about that. I know Alabama went to ULM to play.
And
it went about as expected. But yeah, I don't see where the Sun Belt has. Oh, there it is. Georgia State over Georgia, 66-60.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of. I thought that was kind of nice. I know it was Georgia State was excited about that. They need that.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Arkansas State plays Arkansas, especially in football.
It never happens. But Arkansas State and Arkansas are playing each other in women's basketball in about a week, so that'll be fun to watch. All right, well,
one last note.
Yeah.
Georgia Southern, India Green, averaging 10 rebounds a contest. It doesn't matter what they're shooting if they got somebody cleaning the glass.
Hey, how are those big Russians from JMU doing this year?
Okay. I got one more note.
Okay.
Tibbs said one more, but I've got one more too.
Okay.
You mentioned some of these games. That's the beauty of women's basketball is that these games can get onto the schedule. Because, you know, JMU, they went to Notre Dame, they're going to NC State, they're hosting Texas.
Nice.
We talked about, you know, ULM hosting, you know, it was Alabama, right? And
then Mississippi State coming up.
Yeah, like that's the beauty of women's basketball is, you know, for the most part, nobody's worried too much about the money involved. The coaches aren't as worried about, I guess, the net rankings and all of that. Like they just go play games.
Yeah, they just want to
play games anywhere. And you gotta love women's basketball for that we get to see some of those games happen on campus and on mid-major campuses too.
Well, let's pledge, guys, to take closer attention this year to both the men's teams and the women's teams. Right? I know you guys have always paid close attention. I'm really saying this for me. I'm going to pay closer attention. Speaking of closer attention, Tibbs, I don't know. I haven't really been following it. Do you know who won the regular season volleyball championship? I don't know. I just heard some rumblings, some rumors floating around. From what I understand, the winner was actually picked sixth in their division and somehow ended up winning the whole damn thing. I don't know.
JMU was picked that low?
No, JMU was picked to win and did not.
What happened to that's too bad. Now, do you know who won though? Was it somebody that you might not expect? Maybe a program that was really good in like 2015, and then the coach left, and they were really bad for several years, and now suddenly they're good. Do you know who this team might be?
Not ULM because they just let their coach go.
Is a place that are they using their vet school as like a big recruiting tactic?
Maybe eventually with time.
Congratulations there, Jeremy.
Congratulations to Brian
Good
Gerwig
for
and
you.
Arkansas State, the regular season winner, which we know that really means nothing. You got to win the tournament to go anywhere. But congratulations anyway, because that was a program that was doing really well back in 2014, 2015. Head coach goes to Houston. He's now coaching Houston. Team had a hard time recovering from that, and now they're back. So that's great. That's good stuff.
That's a wrap. It's time for plugs, promos, and parting shots. Jeremy, please enlighten us.
Well, I don't know if I have a coherent thought, but I was
There's a first.
yeah. Usually it's all well scripted. But I took note of tonight was the college football playoff poll. Where they assign rankings to people. It's just kind of ridiculous, guys. It really feels like it's geared that just a certain group of teams are going to reap the benefits of this system. I don't, and it really makes me feel as a college football fan of a team that will probably never win a national championship, right? The odds are super slim, second to almost zero. But it really makes me feel isolated from the community when it just appears that there's this powerful cabal, a small group of people that have taken control of college football and made it to where only a handful of these teams can receive, the ultimate glory. And I was hoping that like a 12-team playoff was going to generate some interest for me. But quite frankly, my interest in a national champion has gotten even lower, and I can't understand why. The process just seems to aggravate me even more, and that is my parting shot.
Shane, what do you have for us?
Not necessarily an original thought, but as we're getting closer to Thanksgiving,
Ooh,
I wish we could go back to doing all these holidays in order. I've never been like a huge holiday person anyway, but like,
okay.
Can we not just start bringing out all the Christmas stuff the day after Halloween? Like,
Yeah,
can
things just make sense.
do Halloween? Let the kids have some candy on Halloween. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Then even maybe wait a week before we really get into Thanksgiving, because like, how much preparation do we really need for Thanksgiving? And then let's start talking about Christmas after Thanksgiving. I'm just like, when you start seeing Christmas stuff in October, it really starts to get to me. And I know I'm not the first one to say this, but the fact that Thanksgiving is right around the corner and it doesn't even seem like it because people talk about Christmas, that's my parting shot. Let's go back to doing these things one at a time.
Yeah, you know what? You've entered curmudgeon territory.
I have.
And I welcome you as a brother because I'm right there with you, bro.
I entered curmudgeon territory when I got too old to look at the Sears catalog for toys on Christmas.
I still do, Shane.
Never too old enough to look at the underwear section, right?
For mine, a true travesty happened this past week. Mississippi College, the Choctaws,
Oh man.
now they will be doing away with their D2 football program, a program that has not had a winning season since 2009.
Jeez.
Why? Because they made the exact decision that while it has a deep legacy and a deep connection to student athletes, alumni, and supporters, they just don't see where they've been competitive. They don't see where there is a return on it. And they are changing their name also to Mississippi Christian. So they can get away from all of the heat of killing off the Choctaws.
I suggest ULM follow suit.